I've had a great opportunity and a great privilege to spend time as a professional footballer. Now, in this country, the national sport, globally, the national sport, the most popular sport. And in the pursuit of that, I've seen over many, many, many years a huge change in how the game has evolved and grown. Indeed, without necessarily aging myself, when I began a successful career, a player would finish their career, retire, and buy a pub. Nowadays, a successful player retires and they buy a club, a football club. Okay. The game back then was counted in millions. Nowadays, it's counted in billions. The relevance of that, in keeping with the theme of tonight, which is a journey into the unknown, the central tenet of my talk is to talk to you about the journey into the unknown that professional players face when their career finishes. Most of you in the room will have at some time spent time thinking about and preparing for your retirement. Retirement planning, of course, in financial services is a key area. People will have ideal retirement ages and they will put plans in place. In football, we're not so lucky. We have little to zero control on when we will retire, on when our career will finish. One bad challenge, a bad decision, an end of a contract, a financial challenge. There are a plethora of reasons that will lead to the end of a professional career. How long is a professional career? Again, a great question. An individual may spend their entire childhood working towards a dream of becoming a professional player. If they're very, very lucky, they will achieve that dream. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about an industry that has a 1% success rate. How many other industries do you know that is happy with and survives with a 99% failure rate? That's the reality of professional football. The journey begins, as was proven in the recent Euro Championship that England got to the final of. The England management team did a wonderful piece where they produced little cards and pictures of every squad member from when they started their journey. The average age? 10 years old. So from 10 years old, the player and their parents are invested, heavily, heavily invested. 3, 4, 5 days per week for 10 and 11 months a year towards a target that you have a 1% chance of being successful in. To use modern vernacular that the kids use, the math isn't mathing. Okay? You've all aged yourself by not truly understanding that, as have I saying it. Okay? The reality, therefore, is we are talking about dreams. We're talking about aspirations. You will have parents who invest time and effort and tens of thousands of pounds taking their children up and down the country year after year after year in pursuit of this dream of becoming a professional. And for those of us who've been lucky enough to achieve it, and for those who are lucky enough to achieve it now, you go into that industry with zero knowledge and control on when it's going to end. So a lot of the work that we do in supporting players who finish their career and helping them to try and transition into the real world has greater meaning and importance based on how successful the game has and continues to grow. The reality, we are talking about young people who from the age of 10, 11 years old, this is a typical post that you would see on a social media platform from a young player posting every week the success of how well they've done in a game. They are advertising themselves and their ongoing success for the world to see. It's like a marketplace, but for young people. What it also does, critically, is it shapes who they are as an individual. It plays to shape their character. Everything is different. Their schooling. At school, they're known as the footballer. Their whole identity, the persona they take on, is that of a footballer. They are encouraged in their professional academies to replicate and to model what the experienced professionals do. And as a result of which, that puts competitive demands on education. They miss out on social events, social gatherings. That maturation process is incredibly different. Indeed, from under 14, children in this country are chosen to represent their respective countries and play international games. They are classed as youth internationals. A 14 and 15-year-old will be traveling the world representing his or her country. The challenge and the pressure of that, whilst studying and having to sit the examinations, the competitive demands. What's the relevance? The relevance, of course, is what coping strategy has been put in place to aid them in being able to find alternative employment should the dream not happen. The answer is very little, unfortunately. What's the relevance and the implication? Let me go forward and start to focus slightly on those people who do, after many, 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 many years of effort, successfully attain a professional contract. As I said, they will do everything they can to retain that position for as long as they possibly can. It's understandable. The rewards are phenomenal. Everybody hears that, and no one's arguing. Okay? But in order to support them being able to do that and to perform at an optimal level, at an elite level, everything is done for them and has been done for them, right the way from private education coupled with schooling, coupled with football on a day-to-day basis. Okay? When they become professionals, everything is done for them so they can focus on performance. Clubs employ an absolute army of staff to do everything for the players so that they are able to concentrate on performing optimally on the pitch. What does that mean? Well, the question we have to ask ourselves is, what happens when the lights go out? What happens when it comes to an end? How prepared are they to move into the real world? Successful players will now play to anywhere between 30 and late 30s. In football parlance, once you get past 30 years old, you are classed as a veteran. Can you imagine that in real life? You are a veteran, okay? Which puts me as a geriatric, okay? So from 30 years plus, your mindset is that of a veteran. And your whole being is to cling on to this life, this artificial life, which is all you've known from 10 years old, for as long as you possibly can. Once again, neglecting the ability to put appropriate plans in place to transition into the rest of your life, into a second career. How bad is it? How great a problem is it? The work we're fortunate enough to do, and I'm really privileged and honored to have been able to see the game from a global perspective with the work I've done with FIFA and current work I do with the Professional Footballers Association here in the UK. And as part of that work, indeed in a few weeks, we begin work running an academy and a training camp for hundreds of professional players in this country who are coming out of contract. They are facing the reality of trying to attain new contracts in new clubs, or leave the game, come out of the industry as a player? What does that relocation look like, sound like, and feel like to them? When we pick up with them, the findings are incredible. Highly successful player that I work with. And when I say highly successful, I mean hundreds and hundreds of games at the very, very top level. And from a financial perspective, will never have to work again so long as he's been sensible. And in a transition meeting said to me, Jonah, I don't have a doctor's, I don't have a dentist's, I've never booked a holiday, I don't know what to do. The emotion that underpins this is one of despair. It's embarrassment. It's abandonment. They have been told what to do, where to be, what to eat, what to drink, what to wear since they were 10 years old. And they now have no grasp and no coping strategy. The implications? Another player, again, highly successful. Emotionally, when working with, trying to understand where he was, actually declared and said, I'm doing everything I can, I'm chasing the dragon. I said, explain to me. And what he was doing was undertaking as many high adrenaline sports as possible to try and get that rush, because he'd lost his purpose and his identity. He had nothing to wake up for. He'd moved from player and star and superstar to ex-player. That X cuts deep. And in fact, he shared, I was on a racetrack doing a race day in a Ferrari at well in excess of 100 miles an hour, approaching a corner, and I questioned whether I was going to turn the wheel or carry straight on towards a wall. That's who we're dealing with. To get to that point of disclosure, you have to give something back. Now, the relevance of that work and why it's so passionate and powerful to myself is I understand abandonment. I know despair. As you heard in the introduction, Mark Jonah Jones. The reason? Jonah's my birth name. I was abandoned as a child, brought up in the care system in London, adopted. Mark is a name that was given to me by the kids' home when I was registered. It's not my real name. So to not even be able to have your own name because of certain world events and the challenges of being able to try and change your name, etc. I will understand and try to get on a wavelength and explain to people, I understand emotionally where you are. I know what it is to feel on your own. Because if you don't and you can't connect with people, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, a young player that I'd coached for 10 years reached 18, and at the same time, the realization that his lifelong dream of becoming a professional wasn't going to happen. He hadn't been deemed good enough. From birth, it had been his sole and only dream. On a Saturday, he worked with myself and the other goalkeepers in our group as part of a match warm-up and was his usual self. The very next day, he took his own life. We've had to live through that and to work through that. So one of the key aspects of the work that we do and the importance of understanding that transition is despair does not discriminate. Despair has no bank account. Despair doesn't choose one person rather than the other. People can feel that at their own will. And we have to create, and we do create, a non-judgmental zone to be able to support them. The pressures that come with being a role model are very often that the model is just playing a role. There's pain and there's challenge beneath the look and the veneer. So when we're working with people and really understanding the challenges of the transition that they're going through, we have to understand how important it is to them. Because principally, if it matters to them, we tell them. It matters to us. If it matters to all of us, we will win. Thank you all very much for your attention.